Welcome to late history, where the past isn't just ancient, it's unfinished. In the dry heart of Egypt, where the sands whisper through abandoned ruins, there once stood a structure that defied all logic. A temple, a labyrinth, so enormous, so intricate, that even the Greeks, who built the Parthenon and studied the stars, bowed in awe. In the 5th century BCE, the famed historian Herodotus stood in front of its gates. What he saw, he claimed, surpassed even the pyramids. But today, nothing. No towering walls. No grand staircases. No inscriptions carved into stone. Just wind, silence, and the uneasy feeling that something vast has been buried or deliberately erased. Herodotus described 3,000 interconnected chambers, a vast and sacred maze partially underground. He wrote of tombs sealed beneath the surface, of passageways so long and confusing that no one entered without a guide. Other ancient authors, Strabo, Pliny the Elder, Diodorus Siculus, all echoed the same wonder. This was not a simple temple. It was an architectural riddle, built by pharaohs who knew secrets we can no longer imagine. It stood at a site called Hawara, near Egypt's Faiyum Oasis, a region once lush, green, and ruled by the powerful 12th dynasty. The nearby pyramid of Amenemhat III, the Black Pyramid, still casts its shadow on the desert. But the labyrinth? Nowhere to be found. Some believe it was looted, its stones repurposed in later centuries. Some believe it collapsed, swallowed by floodwaters in time. Others think it was intentionally hidden. That beneath the sand, an untouched monument still waits, entombed not just by nature, but by design. And what if Herodotus wasn't exaggerating? What if the ancients told the truth, or at least a version of it we've forgotten how to read? What if the labyrinth was never meant for the living? As we peel back the layers of time, this story is not just about bricks and chambers. It's about secrecy, power, and the possibility that history is still hiding its most sacred structure. One so mysterious, even modern Egypt hesitates to uncover it. So let's descend into the dust. Let's revisit the accounts of ancient travelers, modern explorers, and forbidden discoveries. Let's ask the question they dared not answer: what was the Labyrinth of Egypt? And why was it erased? Herodotus enters the labyrinth in the year 450 BCE, long before tourists snapped photos beneath the pyramids or archaeologists dusted bones with brushes. A Greek traveler named Herodotus arrived in Egypt. He didn't come as a conqueror or trader. He came as a seeker, a man obsessed with memory, myth, and the truths buried beneath both. Herodotus recorded what he saw and what he was told. He wrote of temples that glowed under the sun, of priests who could recite thousands of years of history from memory, and of monuments whose stones still defied time. But of all the marvels he described in his histories, one stood apart. A structure so vast and complex, even Herodotus seemed overwhelmed by it. It was a labyrinth, built near the city of Crocodilopolis, known today as Hawara, near the lush crescent of the Faiyum Oasis. There, in a flat expanse of desert south of Cairo, he stood before a building so immense that even the Great Pyramids, he said, paled in comparison. The labyrinth, according to his account, had 12 grand courts, perfectly aligned, facing one another in pairs. But beyond those, and far stranger, were 3,000 chambers, intricately connected, so that one could walk from room to room endlessly without finding the way out. Herodotus was shown the upper level, where light still touched the floors and shadows danced along the walls. But when he asked to descend into the lower level, where sealed tombs and sacred secrets were said to lie, the priests refused him. They told him that kings were buried below, along with the mummified remains of sacred crocodiles, animals revered in the cult of Sobek, the crocodile-headed god. The labyrinth, then, was not just a temple. It was a funerary complex, a sanctuary, and a cosmic map, all in one. But more than that, it was forbidden. Herodotus wasn't the only ancient voice to speak of it. Others would follow: Strabo, the Roman geographer; Pliny the Elder, the encyclopedist; Diodorus Siculus, the Greek historian, and each would echo the same marvel, the same disbelief. This was not a myth, they insisted. This was something they had seen. And yet, for centuries, modern historians dismissed it all. They said Herodotus was prone to exaggeration, that the labyrinth was a literary flourish, a metaphor for Egypt's bureaucratic maze, that no structure like that could have existed, especially one whose scale rivaled entire cities. But then, in the 19th century, explorers and archaeologists began to dig at Hawara. And beneath the sand, they found something. Stone blocks, fragmented foundations, pillars too massive to be part of a modest temple. The pieces didn't form a full labyrinth, not anymore. But they hinted, they whispered. Was Herodotus right all along? And if so, what happened to the rest of it? As the sands shifted and time forgot, the great Egyptian labyrinth slipped into silence. But its shadow never disappeared, not from history, and certainly not from the minds of those still searching. Because if Herodotus really stood at its gates, then somewhere beneath our feet, a secret still waits to be uncovered. Other ancient voices speak. Herodotus may have been the first to record the labyrinth in writing, but he was far from the last. As centuries passed, and empires rose and fell, the story of the Egyptian labyrinth echoed through the minds of other ancient scholars, each one standing in awe, each one offering a different piece of a forgotten puzzle. In the 1st century BCE, the Greek geographer Strabo journeyed through Egypt under Roman rule. Unlike Herodotus, Strabo was a product of empire, precise, methodical, skeptical by nature. But when he reached the region of Hawara, he, too, stood before the ruins of a place that defied logic. In his work Geographica, Strabo confirmed much of what Herodotus had described. He noted that the labyrinth existed, though time and looters had begun to take their toll. He described the structure as once having numerous grand halls, colonnaded courts, and an underground level which still remained off-limits. Though Strabo did not descend, he insisted that parts of the upper labyrinth still stood, their scale and complexity unmatched. He even claimed the labyrinth had been used as a royal administrative center, suggesting that it wasn't just ceremonial, it was political, spiritual, and possibly central to Egyptian governance. A few decades later, Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist and author of the Encyclopedic Natural History, called the Egyptian labyrinth the most prodigious work in all of Egypt. And that is saying something, coming from a man who had visited the pyramids and studied the colossal temples of Luxor and Karnak. Pliny wrote that Daedalus, the mythical builder of the Cretan labyrinth, had drawn his inspiration from this Egyptian original, implying that the legendary Minotaur's prison was only a pale imitation of the ancient Egyptian masterpiece. But then came an even more symbolic interpretation from Diodorus Siculus, writing in the 1st century BCE. Diodorus, who sought to record the myths and histories of various peoples, claimed the Egyptian labyrinth was a mirror of the kingdom itself. He said it contained 42 halls, one for each of Egypt's 42 nomes, the ancient regional divisions of the kingdom. According to him, each hall represented the spiritual heart of a province, suggesting that the labyrinth was not just stone and passageways, but a political map carved in sacred architecture. So what were these men seeing? Were they all copying Herodotus? Was it a literary game of whispers, each writer adding flair to a legend growing with every retelling? Or did they truly stand in the fading shadow of a forgotten wonder? The consistency is uncanny, the location always near Hawara, the descriptions echoing chambers, courts, underground tombs. They came from different centuries, cultures, and empires, and yet, they all told the same story, that something colossal once stood in the desert, unmatched in its ambition, and cloaked in secrecy. But if these ancient writers saw real ruins, then where are they now? The desert is patient. It swallows everything. Sand shifts. Stones vanish. Whole cities disappear without leaving even a trace. Could the labyrinth have suffered the same fate? Or, and here the whispers grow louder, was someone trying to erase it? Because when so many ancient voices speak of the same wonder, one must ask, were they all mistaken? Or were they telling us something we were never meant to know? The location, Hawara and the Faiyum south of the roaring city of Cairo, where the chaos of modern life fades into the rust-colored silence of the desert, lies a region that once glittered with imperial pride, the Faiyum Oasis. This was no mere patch of green in the sand. Faiyum was ancient Egypt's garden, its breadbasket, and for some pharaohs, the very edge of eternity. At its southern entrance, Nestled near the village of Hawara, archaeologists discovered a pyramid, not as towering as those at Giza, but crucial in its importance. It belonged to Pharaoh Amenemhat III, one of the greatest rulers of Egypt's 12th dynasty, dated around 1850 BCE. He reigned during Egypt's Middle Kingdom, a time of revival, innovation, and bold architecture. And it is here, next to his ruined pyramid, that the labyrinth is believed to have once stood. Some scholars propose that the legendary labyrinth described by Herodotus and others may have been a mortuary complex, a massive temple designed to honor and protect the spirit of Amenemhat III in the afterlife. It wouldn't be unusual. Pharaohs often built elaborate temple complexes near their tombs, where rituals could be performed and offerings made to gods and ancestors. But this one, if the ancient accounts are even partially true, this one was unlike any other. Excavations in the 19th and 20th centuries uncovered massive stone blocks, fragments of colossal columns, and foundation walls far larger than would be expected for an ordinary temple. And the location matched almost perfectly with the writings of Herodotus and Strabo. This wasn't the pyramids of Giza. This was Hawara, exactly where the ancients said the labyrinth once spread like a stone forest across the desert. But if it was here, where did it go? One answer may lie beneath the surface, literally. The region around Hawara is geologically unstable. The water table of the Faiyum Depression fluctuates dramatically. The soil is soft, often described as quicksand-like, and ruins have a tendency to sink, shift, and collapse under the weight of time and moisture. Ancient structures built too close to the waterline suffered the worst, crumbling under pressure, or vanishing below the ground as if swallowed by the earth itself. Some archaeologists suggest that the labyrinth wasn't destroyed by humans or invaders, but by nature. Over thousands of years, subterranean water may have weakened the foundations, dragging stone columns downward inch by inch until the labyrinth was entombed beneath its own weight. Others believe the labyrinth may have been intentionally dismantled in later centuries. After all, Hawara was reused again and again by later dynasties and even invading forces. Stone was scarce, and reusing building materials was common practice. Massive limestone blocks could have been quarried from the fallen labyrinth and shipped off to build mosques, forts, or even other temples. Still others whisper darker theories, that the temple was buried on purpose, its secrets sealed away not by time, but by design. But despite the erosion, the looting, and the shifting sands, something stubborn remains beneath the ground. Ground-penetrating radar studies in the 2000s revealed geometric patterns, straight lines, and unusual anomalies beneath the surface of Hawara, just meters below where tourists now walk unaware. To this day, Egypt has not authorized deep excavation of these patterns. The reasons given are always cautious: risk of flooding, danger of collapse, lack of technology. But some wonder, is it just caution? Or do the authorities already suspect what lies beneath? Because if the labyrinth is still there, intact or in ruins, it would rewrite more than just Egypt's architectural history. It would confirm that the greatest monument of the ancient world isn't the pyramid, but something we still haven't seen. Petrie and the missing stones. By the late 19th century, the age of romantic archaeology was in full swing. Adventurers and scholars from Europe were descending upon Egypt with shovels, maps, and ambition, desperate to be the next to unveil a hidden wonder of the ancient world. One of them would come dangerously close to doing just that. His name was Flinders Petrie. Often called the father of modern Egyptian archaeology, Sir William Flinders Petrie wasn't just a digger, he was a meticulous scientist. He measured pottery shards by the millimeter. He mapped ruins with mathematical precision. And in 1888, his focus turned to a desolate stretch of sand near the village of Hawara, beside the ruined pyramid of Amenemhat III. He had read the accounts of Herodotus, Strabo, Diodorus, and Pliny. He knew the legends of the labyrinth, the temple that surpassed even the pyramids. He also knew the academic world dismissed these stories as exaggeration. But Petrie wanted to know for himself. What he uncovered was astonishing and frustrating. As he dug, he began to uncover massive stone foundations, wide platforms, buried walls, and fragments of enormous limestone pillars. One was nearly 4 meters thick. They weren't part of the pyramid. These ruins sprawled far beyond any typical mortuary temple. To Petrie, it was clear. He was standing on top of something vast. Something that once stretched across more than 1,000 feet in length. But where was the rest? He didn't find the labyrinth described by Herodotus in its full form. No endless passageways, no vast colonnaded halls, no sacred crocodile tombs. What Petrie found was the outline of something colossal, the skeleton of a forgotten marvel. And then came the most sobering realization. The stones were gone. The massive walls had been stripped bare. Columns dismantled. Doors removed. Roofs vanished. Petrie learned from local villagers that for centuries, perhaps millennia, the labyrinth's stones had been used as quarries, broken apart and shipped off to nearby towns to build homes, mosques, and roads. Hawara had been plundered, piece by piece, until only its ghost remained. In his reports, Petrie wrote with subtle frustration, noting that the damage was not accidental. The looting had been systematic. Someone had known the labyrinth was here. Someone or many had come back for it. But even amid the ruins, he insisted, this was it. This was the site Herodotus described. The foundations were too vast, too unusual, and exactly where the ancient writers had said it would be. The match was too perfect to dismiss. Yet Petrie also wondered something deeper, something many of his peers ignored. What if he had only scratched the surface? Petrie openly speculated that what he saw might have been only the upper level of the labyrinth. After all, Herodotus had claimed the underground chambers were off-limits to outsiders. Sacred tombs hidden below, never seen again. Petrie couldn't dig deeper, the ground was unstable, saturated with water, and excavating deeper was near impossible with 19th century tools. So he left the site. But he never forgot it. Future archaeologists would return to Hawara, hoping to build on Petrie's discoveries. Some found pottery. Some found bones. But none found the grand halls that ancient writers swore once stood in the sand. And so, the great question still lingers. Did Petrie really find the remains of the Lost Labyrinth? Was it dismantled, looted, erased by time? Or was he only standing on the upper layer of something still hidden below? Buried chambers untouched for 4,000 years? Modern technology, like ground-penetrating radar, has hinted that something structured, something unnatural, may still lie just below the surface. But despite these clues, the Egyptian government has not allowed a full-scale excavation. Why? Some say it's for preservation. Others fear collapse or water damage. But there are whispers that something else is at play. Because if Petrie was right, then just beneath the sand, waiting in silence, may still lie the largest forgotten temple in Egyptian history, unseen by human eyes for over 40 centuries. And it was almost lost forever, beneath our very feet. Underground anomalies, the Mataha Expedition over a century after Flinders Petrie walked away from Hawara. Convinced he had touched the edge of something vast, the sands remained still. But the silence wouldn't last forever. In 2008, a team of scientists quietly arrived in the Egyptian desert. They weren't treasure hunters or tomb raiders. They weren't here to dig. They were here to scan. The team, a collaboration between Belgian and Egyptian researchers, was called the Mataha Expedition. The name Mataha means labyrinth in Arabic, and their mission, to use ground-penetrating radar, GPR, to search beneath the sands of Hawara, beneath the very same ruins Petrie had studied over a century earlier. They came with modern instruments, technology Petrie could only dream of. What they found was chilling. The GPR data didn't just suggest a few ruins or foundations. It revealed something massive, a rectangular structure, perfectly symmetrical, stretching across several hundred meters. Beneath that, deep voids, corridors, chambers, rooms that shouldn't be there. The scans showed anomalies, unnatural patterns that could not be explained by geology or natural rock formations. They resembled walls, courtyards, and subterranean complexes. Exactly what Herodotus had described. Exactly what Petrie had suspected. The team was stunned. They had found evidence, not myth, not legend, but measurable, mappable anomalies beneath the sands of Hawara. A blueprint of something still buried. A structure lost to history. But then, something strange happened. Silence. The findings were never published officially in Egypt. The Egyptian authorities did not permit further excavations. The final report, which the Belgian team hoped to present publicly, was blocked. Some of the findings did leak online. A brief academic summary posted on obscure websites showing scan results and diagrams. But they were quickly dismissed or buried under skepticism. No press conference. No headlines. No official announcements. The data was real. But the doors to the labyrinth slammed shut once again. Why? Some claimed it was bureaucracy, Egypt's strict antiquities laws, and a lack of resources. Others blamed the instability of the ground, the waterlogged earth around Hawara, making excavation dangerous. A few suggested that protecting fragile ruins from destruction was the priority. But not everyone bought those explanations. Why fund a scan if no excavation would follow? Why hide the results instead of celebrating them? And why were the most promising finds in decades met not with curiosity, but with silence? Conspiracy theorists began to whisper. Was something found that couldn't be allowed to reach the public? Was it political? Religious? Could the labyrinth hold secrets that challenge accepted narratives about Egyptian history, or worse, contradict them? Or perhaps the truth is simpler and more terrifying. Perhaps what lies beneath isn't just old stone and dust. Perhaps what the Mataha Expedition touched, like Herodotus, like Petrie, was the edge of something sealed away on purpose. A structure not meant for rediscovery. Because if that labyrinth truly held the tombs of ancient kings, sacred crocodiles, sealed texts, and forbidden knowledge, then opening it might mean unlocking something we no longer understand. Something buried not just by sand, but by design. Secrets of the underworld chambers in his writings, Herodotus was precise, almost reverent, when he described what he didn't see. While he claimed to have walked through the upper chambers of the Great Labyrinth, it was the lower level that obsessed him. He was denied entry. No foreigner, he said, had ever been allowed in. And yet, it was this hidden level, this sealed underworld, that Egyptian priests described as the true heart of the labyrinth. So what exactly was buried beneath? According to Herodotus and later sources, the underground chambers held three things: the tombs of ancient kings, long forgotten by time; the mummified remains of sacred crocodiles, revered as avatars of the god Sobek; and most intriguingly, inscriptions of great wisdom. No one knows what these inscriptions were. They could have been hymns or prayers. But some suspect something else entirely, something deeper. Some believe that these inscriptions could have been scrolls, tablets, or even blueprints, records from before Egypt's known dynasties. Ancient texts so significant that they were hidden away forever. But why would the Egyptians, masters of temples, tombs, and ritual, go to such lengths to seal something off? Why was it off-limits, even to Greek dignitaries and royal scribes? One theory suggests the rooms below were not tombs, but vaults, repositories of knowledge, perhaps containing records from a pre-dynastic civilization, one that predates even the first pharaohs. If true, it would mean the labyrinth wasn't just a temple. It was a library, a chamber of secrets intended to outlive floods, fires, and empires. Others speculate these chambers held forbidden texts, knowledge deemed too dangerous or heretical to preserve in the open. Some ancient legends speak of lost books of Thoth, a mythical Egyptian sage said to have possessed vast scientific and magical wisdom. Could copies of these books have been buried here? Even more fantastical are the whispers in the corners of forbidden archaeology. That the Egyptians, or whoever came before them, knew of energy systems, advanced math, or even star maps encoded in stone. They point to Herodotus's cryptic phrasing. It surpasses even the pyramids. Not in size, but in purpose. And what of the sacred crocodiles? Were they symbolic, or part of a ritual system now lost to us? The god Sobek was tied to fertility, chaos, and the Nile cycles. His worship at Hawara was no accident. The crocodile tombs may point to the labyrinth's role in rebirth, resurrection, or cosmic order. But all of this remains speculation. No one has seen the lower level in over 2,000 years. And if the Mataha Expedition scans are accurate, if those deep voids are real, then whatever remains beneath the sand is still there, perfectly preserved. Waiting. Egyptian authorities have yet to authorize a full excavation. The reasons remain vague. Concerns over the high water table, fears of irreparable damage, or simply the immense cost and risk of tunneling into unstable ground. But some believe the reasons are more selective. Because to open those chambers could be to unleash truths that shake the foundations of our understanding of Egypt, and perhaps history itself. Did the Egyptians hide something? Were they protecting us from it? Or, more chillingly, did they bury a legacy so powerful that even they feared what it contained? The symbolic design Egypt's hidden map? What if the labyrinth wasn't merely a monument, but a message? Herodotus marveled at its grandeur. Strabo mapped its scale. But others, ancient and modern, have looked past the stones and into the structure itself. According to Diodorus Siculus, the labyrinth's chambers were not randomly arranged. They were deliberate, he claimed, 42 halls, each representing one of Egypt's 42 nomes or provinces. A symbolic kingdom carved into stone. This wasn't just architecture. It was cosmology, a temple map of the nation, a miniature Egypt. To walk its halls, some believe, was to walk the land itself, to journey through Egypt's physical, spiritual, and political body. Every chamber a node, every passage a border, a place where the macrocosm of empire was embedded in the microcosm of architecture. But the numbers may go deeper. Some researchers, particularly those studying sacred geometry, have analyzed the descriptions of the labyrinth's layout, its proportions, symmetry, and alignment. What they found, or believe they found, is not coincidence. They claim the design hides mathematical constants, golden ratios, and even celestial alignments, relationships between the labyrinth's form and the movement of the stars, the rising of Sirius, the solstices, and even Orion's belt, just like at Giza. Could the labyrinth have been not just a temple or tomb, but a cosmic calendar? An observatory, written not in stone markers, but in architectural flow? Was it a ritual device, built to mirror the heavens and perhaps to access them? Some theorists suggest the halls were used by initiates, priesthoods who underwent ceremonial journeys through the labyrinth as part of mystery rites. Each room representing a stage in spiritual evolution. The descent into the underground chambers not a physical journey, but a symbolic death and rebirth. Others go even further. They speculate the labyrinth might have been pre-pharaonic, or at least built upon older ruins, a legacy inherited by dynastic Egypt, misunderstood but preserved out of reverence. A temple not just for worship but for memory. Was this why it was so closely guarded? Was this why Herodotus was kept above ground? Because those who entered below weren't just walking through stone. They were walking through time, through power, through knowledge not meant for all eyes. Some fringe researchers have even suggested the labyrinth held political secrets, encoded genealogies, forbidden truths about ancient rulers, or even evidence of cycles of civilization. The idea that Egypt was not the first, but the rebirth of something much older. Could the very design of the labyrinth have held these truths? A time capsule in architecture. A message not in language but in layout. And then there's the haunting question. Did someone decode it? And if so, is that why it vanished? If knowledge was hidden here, knowledge powerful enough to elevate or destroy kings, to rewrite timelines or reshape belief. Maybe it wasn't destroyed by time. Maybe it was erased by intention. Why was it erased? Politics, power, or fear? It stood as one of the greatest architectural achievements of the ancient world. A monument so vast that Herodotus believed it surpassed even the pyramids. And yet, it vanished. Not crumbled. Not worn by time. Erased. But why? One explanation is the most mundane, and yet perhaps the most tragic. Like many ancient sites, the labyrinth may have fallen victim to centuries of looting. Egypt, after all, has been quarried for stone since the fall of the pharaohs. Great temples were broken down to build mosques, churches, forts, and homes. Pharaohs themselves often reused monuments of their predecessors, scratching out names, replacing gods, seizing the past to legitimize the present. The labyrinth, massive and abandoned, could have been the perfect source of ready-cut limestone. its halls pulled down one by one, until only scattered foundations remained. But does that explain the silence? Why did so many ancient texts describe its grandeur, only for later centuries to ignore it entirely? Why were there no known tombs pulled from it? No treasures? Not even preserved reliefs? Could it be that it wasn't merely looted, but intentionally hidden? Egypt has a long and turbulent religious history. At various points, radical rulers erased the gods of the past. Akhenaten tried to abolish the entire pantheon, replacing it with a single solar deity. Centuries later, foreign invaders, Greeks, Romans, Persians, and eventually Islamic caliphates, ruled over Egypt, each with their own beliefs, their own fears, their own reasons to erase what came before. What if the labyrinth held forbidden texts, scrolls or inscriptions that challenged the official history? What if it revealed a lineage of rulers older than the accepted dynasties, or worse, spoke of a civilization that predated Egypt itself? Some believe the labyrinth was a repository of knowledge, perhaps from a time before the flood, as echoed in the Sumerian king list and other ancient myths. And what if someone in power discovered what was hidden there, and decided it should never be seen again? There are whispers that the Romans had access to the labyrinth's upper levels. Some believe they may have removed or destroyed parts of it in their quest to dominate Egyptian culture, not through conquest alone, but by rewriting its roots. Later, early Christian authorities, eager to suppress pagan symbols and temples, may have sealed or buried the site altogether. Even under Islamic rule, the preservation of older monuments was selective. Anything perceived as idolatrous, heretical, or dangerous could be marked for destruction. But what if the truth is even more haunting? What if those who erased the labyrinth were afraid of it? Afraid of what it represented? Afraid of what it protected? Afraid of what might lie beneath? Some researchers argue the Mataha Expedition in 2008 confirmed underground voids and symmetrical structures. But the findings were never fully released. The team was reportedly barred from further exploration. Why? Could it be that modern institutions, too, fear what they might find? Or perhaps they already know. Perhaps the labyrinth was not destroyed, but buried intentionally. Not by time, not by erosion, but by choice. Covered over, forgotten, silenced. Because some structures aren't meant to be uncovered. Not yet. Was it never just human? Across the dust-blown plains of Hawara, where barely a trace remains of what once stood, an unsettling question lingers like heat rising from the stones. Was the Egyptian labyrinth ever truly human? The scale defies belief. 3,000 chambers underground and above. A structure so immense, so complex, that even modern engineers have struggled to fully model it. And yet, it was supposedly built over 4,000 years ago, in a time with no electricity, no cranes, no digital designs. Just copper tools, stone hammers, and genius. Or was it something else? Herodotus marveled at it. Strabo confirmed it. Pliny praised it. Diodorus described its symbolism and secrets. But none of them claimed to understand it. Even the priests who guarded it closely never allowed access to the lower level, as if fearing what might be unleashed. This intense secrecy, and the sheer architectural wonder, has given birth to a whirlwind of alternate theories. Not all are easily dismissed. Some believe the labyrinth was built not by the pharaohs alone, but by a lost civilization that predated dynastic Egypt, one whose knowledge of astronomy, sacred geometry, and the underworld far surpassed what we assume ancient humans were capable of. Others go further. Could it have been a repository of Atlantean wisdom? Plato described Atlantis as a powerful maritime civilization that vanished beneath the waves, but not before, perhaps, seeding knowledge across the ancient world. The idea that survivors of a prehistoric cataclysm passed down their sacred knowledge to early Egyptians has long echoed in alternative archaeology. And then, there are the stars. Eridu in Sumer, Teotihuacan in Mexico, Angkor in Cambodia, the Giza Plateau in Egypt. Many ancient structures appear aligned not just to cardinal points, but to celestial bodies, stars, solstices, and constellations. Could the labyrinth have served a cosmic purpose? Was it a map of the heavens, or a gateway to something beyond them? Some proponents of the ancient astronaut theory suggest that the labyrinth, like other enigmatic sites, may have been influenced or even commissioned by non-human intelligences. Beings described in Egyptian myth not just as gods, but as immortals who came from the sky. The Anunnaki in Sumer, the Netjeru in Egypt, the Watchers in apocryphal Hebrew texts. Is it possible the labyrinth was not simply a tomb or temple, but a containment system, a machine, or a library of knowledge forbidden to the uninitiated? Even the priests of Herodotus' time refused to allow entry into the lower chambers. Why? They spoke of sacred crocodiles, of sealed tombs, but also of inscriptions of great wisdom, engraved deep in the stone. Wisdom that, perhaps, could rewrite history or fracture belief systems. So much about Egypt's past is still a mystery. No one knows how the Great Pyramid was built with such precision. No one knows what lies under the Sphinx. No one knows where Imhotep, the architect god, is buried. And no one knows what lies beneath Hawara. Could the labyrinth, like the Ark of the Covenant or the Library of Alexandria, be one of those lost repositories of knowledge, intentionally hidden until mankind is ready? Or perhaps, never meant to be found again? Because if the temple was not entirely human, then opening it could mean unlocking truths we're not prepared to face. Could the labyrinth still be there? Beneath the cracked soil of Hawara, where goats wander and tourists rarely venture, something vast and buried may still sleep. The maps say it's just desert. The surface shows no grandeur. But Herodotus swore he saw the halls long, echoing, sacred. And the priests warned him never to descend. That temple, that so-called labyrinth with 3,000 chambers, might not be a myth after all. It might still be there, intact, sealed, watching us through layers of time and earth. So, why haven't we uncovered it? In 2008, the Mataha Expedition used advanced ground-penetrating radar. They scanned the area next to Amenemhat III's pyramid and reported something remarkable. A massive symmetrical structure underground, spanning hundreds of meters, possibly multiple levels deep. The pattern matched Herodotus' description: long corridors, grid-like chambers, and what appeared to be sealed voids beneath the sand. But after their announcement, silence. The results were never officially published in Egypt. Media access was restricted, and the Egyptian authorities quietly closed the site to further excavation. Some called it caution. Others called it censorship. Whatever it was, the labyrinth vanished again, this time from the headlines. The reason might seem simple on the surface: water. The Faiyum region suffers from a high water table. Decades of irrigation and farming have turned the ground unstable. Ancient bricks crumble, basements flood, and secrets rot in silence. Many scholars argue that digging further might destroy what's left, that without proper technology and funding, any attempt to excavate the lower labyrinth could ruin it forever. But others aren't so sure. They believe the real reason is not water but what lies beneath it. Because if the labyrinth is truly down there, if it contains sealed tombs of ancient kings, sacred texts, or knowledge predating pharaohs, it could destabilize everything we think we know about history. Imagine discovering scrolls that rewrite Egyptian religion, blueprints that suggest a forgotten science, or evidence that the labyrinth wasn't built during the 12th dynasty, but was already ancient when the pharaohs found it. That changes the game. That makes it political. That makes it dangerous. So instead, the desert quietly reclaims the site. The occasional academic paper is written. Tour guides speak in hushed tones. Locals walk the edges of the site without ever stepping in. And yet, beneath the cracked earth, the lost temple may still be waiting. Waiting for a team brave enough, careful enough, and allowed enough to go deeper. Because Hawara was never just a ruin. It was a gate to memory, mystery, and myth. The labyrinth may be lost in the eyes of the world, but under the sand, it may still breathe. A sealed archive of an older world. A forgotten cathedral of kings. A final whisper from Egypt's buried soul. And the question now is not whether it existed, but whether we still dare to look. Egypt's forgotten wonder. The pyramids still rise above the desert, bold, defiant, undeniable. Tourists walk the corridors of Luxor, touch the stones of Karnak, and photograph the Sphinx. But far from the tour buses and lights, near the quiet fields of Hawara, something older, quieter, and stranger may still sleep. The Lost Labyrinth of Egypt wasn't just another monument. If the ancient accounts are true, it was the most ambitious structure of its age. A riddle of chambers, tombs, and mysteries etched into stone and buried in silence. Herodotus, Strabo, Pliny, they all said it was real. And in 2008, machines whispered confirmation beneath the sand. Then nothing. No gates opened. No chambers explored. Only more silence and more sand. So we're left wondering, was the labyrinth destroyed? Or intentionally hidden? Were the tombs empty? Or filled with secrets we are not yet ready to face? Egypt is a land where history breathes. But sometimes, it holds its breath. And sometimes what is buried is not lost, just waiting. Maybe the labyrinth was never meant to be rediscovered. Maybe it was built to guard something, not just display it. Maybe it was erased to protect us or protect itself. And that is the haunting beauty of it. A structure so massive, so majestic, that the ancients swore it surpassed the pyramids. Now reduced to a rumor in the dirt. But what if that rumor is true? Thanks for watching Late History. If this mystery gripped you like it gripped us, subscribe and follow us into the next forgotten riddle of the ancient world. Because some doors stay sealed for a reason, but others are just waiting for the right story to open them.